Dear students, hope you are all doing good. In the previous two modules, we explored how to import modules and use packages. In all our Python scripts, we need to feed the input whenever we execute the script. Assume a program that reads a handful amount of data from the user. When the program exits, the entire data entered by the user is lost. When the program is run again, the user needs to enter the large amount of data again. It is a time consuming process, but if there is a provision for storing the data and be reused whenever needed, then reading a large volume of data will not be a time consuming process. Here comes the need for files. Files provide a way to store large volume of data that can be used whenever needed. File is a place on storage disk where a group of related data is stored. So, in this module, we will explore how Python handles one of the most important components of any operating system, that is files. At the end of this module, you will be able to open, close, read, write and perform file related operations. Okay, let us begin. Python treats a file either as a text or binary file. A text file contains textual information in the form of alphabets, digits and special characters or symbols and readable by human and computer. Each line of a file is terminated with a special character called EOL or end of line character like comma or new line character. EOL ends the current line and tells the interpreter a new line begins, whereas a binary file contains bytes or compiled version of a text file and readable by computer only. For working with files in Python, you do not need to import any library in order to read or write files. It is handled natively in the language itself. First of all, what is a file? File is a named location on disk to store related information. It is used permanently to store the data in non-volatile memory like hard disk. When we want to read from or write to a file, we need to open it first. Once done with the file, it needs to be closed so that the resources that are held by the file are released. So, first let us see how to open a file in Python. To read or write to a file, you need to open it first. To open a file in Python, use open function. This function returns a file object, that is a handle. You can use it to read or modify the file. See the syntax for opening a file in Python over the console. So, the syntax for opening the file is open with 3 arguments, of which 2 are optional and the first argument is mandatory, which is the file name. So, it is a string representing the name of the file you want to access. Following that, we have 2 optional arguments. First of it is access mode. It is an optional parameter and an integer representing the file modes. We will see shortly about various file modes. Then third argument, which is again an optional argument, is buffering. The default value is 0, which means no buffering. If it is 1, that indicates line buffering will take place while accessing the file. If its value is greater than 1, then it means buffering action will run as per the buffer size. Negative value for buffering option indicates that default behavior is assumed. There are various modes available to open a file. We can open in read mode, write mode, append mode, etc. Pretty straightforward, but keep in mind that default mode is the read mode. Including a mode while opening a file is optional, and the default value of R will be assumed. If it is omitted, the R value stands for read mode. So, the various modes supported by Python can be seen on the console. So, here you can see various modes in which files can be opened. First, R opens a file in read only mode while the file offset is positioned at the starting. Then RB, it opens a file in read only and B indicates it is a binary file and the offset again remains at the starting. R plus, it opens the file in both read and write mode while the offset is again at the starting. RB plus R, R plus B, it opens the file in read, write and binary modes. The file offset is again at the starting. W, it allows write level access to the file. If the file is already exist, it will get overwritten and will be created as an empty file if it is does not exist. WB, if use it open a file for writing in binary mode, same behavior as for write only mode. W plus, it opens a file in both read plus write mode, same behavior as for write only mode. WB plus R, W plus B, it opens a file in read, write and binary modes, same behavior as for write only mode. Then A, it opens the file in append mode, the offset goes to the end of the file. If the file does not exist, then it gets created. Then AB mode, it opens a file in append and binary modes, same behavior as for append mode. Then A plus, it opens a file in append plus read mode, same behavior as for append mode. Then finally, we have AB plus R, A plus B, it opens a file in append, read and binary modes, same behavior as for append mode. You can specify if the file should be handled as a text file by mentioning T along with modes. Omitting it also indicates the text mode only. The text mode is default. For binary modes, replace T with B. Now, let us take a look at a few examples for opening text and binary files in different modes. So, here you can see different ways of opening files. In the first case, we open a file sample.txt in read mode, or you can also open a text file in read mode by mentioning RT, or omitting both R and T will also open the file in read mode and the file will be again a text file. To open a file write mode, just give W. In the last example, we have opened a file called pic.jpg in R plus B mode, which is the file is opened in read, write mode and this is a binary file. So, in all these cases, F is the file object or it is a file handle. Once we have opened the files, we can do the required operations based on the modes in which they are opened. Let us see them one by one. First, we will consider text files. Now, let us create a file. How do we create a file? what mode the file should be opened while creating a file? Of course, in write mode. Notice the console. Here you can see how to open a file in write mode. We have opened a file called sample.txt in write mode by mentioning the mode as W. If the file sample.txt does not exist already, then it will be created. If it exists, then the contents will be erased and empty file will result. As you have seen, opening a file in writing mode will create an empty file. Now, we have to write some contents into the file. How do we write? Python provides 3 methods to write a file and we can invoke them using file object. See them on the console. So, here you can see 3 different methods for writing into either text file or binary file. Write with string as an argument will write into text file. Instead of string, if you pass byte string, then we can write into binary file. Then the third function will help us to write list of strings into a text file. Now, let us try a few examples. So, here we open a file named sample.txt in write mode. If it does not exist, a file in that name will be created in the current directory. If it already exists, then the contents will be deleted and opened as an empty file. Then we use write method to write some contents into the file. At last, we close the file. Let us now run and see what happens. So, we cannot see anything on the screen as we have written anything on the console, but let us open and see that sample.txt file and we can see the contents written into the file. Just open the file and see the content. When you see the file contents, you would notice that all the write methods have written the contents on the same line. If you need to write them on separate line, then add a new line character at the end of each string. Now, we will move on to the next method, that is write line methods. This method can be used to write a list of strings onto the file at a stretch. So, here first we write list of strings. We create a list of strings, then we open the file sample.txt in write mode. As I have told you, if it is not existing already, a new file will be created. If it exists already, the contents get deleted and you will get an empty file. In our file, because of our previous script, the file has some content, but when you open it in write mode, the contents will be deleted, you will get new contents. Then we write lines into the file, then we close. Let us run and see what happens. Just open the file sample.txt from the directory where it is stored and see the content. As you can see now, the text are written onto different lines. In the previous two examples, you would have noticed that when we open the same file in writing mode, the contents get erased and the new contents are placed in the file. Suppose we do not want to erase the contents, but would like to add or append to the existing contents. What mode you would use? Yes, you need to open the file in append mode. Watch the script for appending. So, here again we create list of string, then we open sample.txt file in append mode. When the append mode is used, the file offset will be at the end of the file. Then we use write line methods to write the list of string starting from the end of the file. Then finally, we close the file. Again run the script and see what happens. Then go to the location where we have stored sample.txt and see the content. Now, as you can notice, these two new lines are added at the end of the file. Note that when you run the script a number of times, each time the contents are appended to the end of the file. Shall we try one more example to create a file that contains numbers from 1 to n? Observe the monitor for the script. So, in the script we have a for loop that generates the range of numbers from 1 to 9 and it writes the number into the file. Here again we have opened the file sample.txt in write mode. We cannot write integers directly, so we need to convert it into string and write. So, that is why we have used str function which will convert this integer into string and we are writing it into the file and we are appending one new line, so that every integer will be written on different line. Then we close the file. As usual, we run and see the output. Just go to the location where we have this sample.txt, see the output. So, now you can see the numbers are written, the numbers from 1 to 9 are written on different lines. By now, you would be familiar with writing and appending modes. Next is the operation that we are going to see is reading from the file. To read a file in Python, we must open the file in reading mode. We have read, readline and readlines method for reading from the file. Have a glance over the console for read methods. So, here you can see different methods for reading from the file. The first method, read with size argument, read that many number of data or characters from the file. If the size is not specified, then the read method reads the entire content up to the end of the file. Readline method will be used to read individual lines of a file. This method reads a file till the new line, including the new line character. Then readlines method to return a list of lines of the entire file. All reading methods return an empty value when end of file, that is EOF is reached. Now, let us see how to use these methods. Watch the console for a number of examples using read method. So, here we have open sample.txt in read method, read mode. So, R is used to represent read mode. Then we use read method which reads the content from the file. As I told you, the read method will read entire contents from the file. Then we have print the contents over the console, then finally we close the file. Can you guess what is the output? Let us see. Run the script and see. So, you can see all the contents getting displayed over the screen from sample.txt file. Here you have another example of opening the same file in read mode, but this time we read only first 10 characters from the file. Instead of reading the entire content, we only read 10 lines from the file. So, just run and see what you are getting as output. You will be getting the first 10 characters from the file. So, here we have one more example. Here too we open the sample.txt in read mode, but this time we read only the first line by using readline method, which reads the first line and we print the first line from the file, and as usual we close the file. Then let us run and see what we are getting. So, we can see only the first line from the file. Here again we open the file sample.txt in read mode. Instead of read line, here we use read lines method. this method will read the entire content from the file line by line, and we are printing it on the screen. As usual, finally we close the file. Then we will run and see the output. Now you can see the entire content from the file. And final example for read method. Here again we use read lines method, but this time we print the lines in the file line by line using a for loop. In previous case we have just printed the read lines as a stretch, but here we use a for line. We use a line iterating variable which will iterate over the contents, which are nothing but the lines of the file. Then close the file, run and see what you are getting. So, you can see the lines of the file displayed over next lines. Now, we will write a script that creates a file, writes the content into the file and reads the content from the file. So, in this example, we have a list, then we open a file sample.txt in write mode. You know what would happen when you open in write mode. Then we write lines, we use write lines method to write the list into the file. So, next we close the file, then we open the file in read mode. So, we have written something into that file, now we want to read. So, in order to position the file offset at the beginning, we have to close and open it. Then we read the contents of the file using read lines method. Then we use a for loop to iterate over the lines in the file. Then we close the file. So, let us see what happens. So, the contents from the file are read and can be seen on the screen. In the previous example, we opened the file in writing mode, closed and again opened it in read mode. Is it the only way to write or read from the same file? Just recollect the different file modes. We have mode W+, which lets us to do both reading and writing without closing and reopening. Let us see how to use W+. In this example, we first create a file named sample.txt in W+ mode. Then we write the list fruits into the file using write line method. As you notice, W+ can be used for both reading and writing. After writing the contents into the file, we use read lines method to read the contents from the file. Then we as usual print the contents, then close the file. Let us run and see what output you are getting. Can you see any output? No output. Why no output? In the previous example, after writing the contents into the file offset is at the end of the file. So, only when we display the contents, nothing was displayed. So, how do we sort out this problem? Here, we need to position the file offset to the beginning of the file after writing its content. For doing so, file objects provide two file position methods, namely tell and seek. We will see each of them now. The tell method tells the current position within the file. This method does not take any arguments. The seek method changes the current file position. The syntax of seek method can be seen on the screen. So, here you can see the syntax of the seek method, which takes two arguments. The first one is offset, which is a mandatory argument. Following that, you have an optional argument. So, this is used to change the current file position. So, offset indicates the number of bytes to be moved, from indicates the reference position from where the file bytes are to be moved. From can take 0 or 1 or 2. 0 means beginning of the file as the reference position. 1 means the current position as the reference position. 2 means end of the file would be the reference position. Now, let us rewrite the program which both writes and reads from using seek. So, here you can see after writing the contents into the file using write lines method, the file offset is positioned at last, but we use seek again to position it to the beginning. So, as I told you, seek 0 will position the file pointer or the file offset at the beginning. Then we read the contents of the file, then we have a for loop to print the entire contents of the file line by line. Then as usual we close the file. Next run and see. Now you can see the contents of the file. Note that negative offset is not allowed if the file mode does not include B, which indicates binary format. You can see the console for some valid and invalid usage of seek and also an example for using seek. So, here you can see some of the valid and invalid usages of seek. Only forward operations such as seek 0, 2, seek 5, 0, seek 2, 0 are allowed when the file object is a text file. Here seek 0, 2 position at the end of file. Seek 5, 0 positions at the 6th character from the beginning, and similarly for seek 2, 0. Some invalid usages are seek 2, 2 and seek -2, 2. Non-zero offset for seeking from the end is not allowed. Similarly, seek 2, 1 and seek -2, 1. Here again non-zero offset for seeking from the current position is not allowed. Again seek -2, 0, here negative seeking is not allowed from the beginning. So, what is the output? The usage of seek function. As usual we have a list and we have opened the file W plus. In W plus is the mode in which we have opened the file sample.txt, then we write lines from fruits into the file, then we read from the file, the entire contents are read. Just run and see this, what output you are getting. So, when you run you can see nothing getting displayed. Why it is so? Because after writing the file is positioned at the end of the file. So, when you read from the end nothing would be read. So, how do we go about this problem? So, what is the change you have to do? Just uncomment the seek method. As I have told you, this seek method will position the file pointer at the beginning. So, when you read now it will be read from the beginning. Now, run and see what you are getting. Now, you can see the contents from the file displayed over the console. And another method related to positioning of the file is tell, which tells where the file offset is positioned currently. Let us see how to use it. So, in this example seek methods position the offset at the beginning. The first seek positions the file offset at the beginning. So, when you use f.tell, that will display the first position, that is 0, because we have positioned the file offset at the beginning. then we read the contents of the file. When we complete reading the content from the file will be positioned at end. So, when we use till method now, the file offset will be at the end of the file. So, when we display that position, what will we get? See the console, run and see the output. So, initially the file is positioned at 0, then after reading the content the file will be positioned at the last, which is nothing but the 28th position. By now you will be able to create, read from or write into files using Python. When you are done with operations on the file, we have to properly close the file. Closing a file will free up the resources that were tied with the file, and it is done using Python close method. In all our previous example, we have used close at the end. Even though Python has a garbage collector to clean up unreferenced or unused objects, but we must not solely depend on it to close the file. It is better if we close it explicitly in our program. Before moving further, let us write a script that copies the contents of one file to another. Observe the console for the script. So, here we have a script which copies contents from one file to another file. We open sample.txt file in reading mode, which contains some contents, and we have another file target.txt which is opened in write mode. So, we are going to copy from sample.txt onto target.txt. So, we read from F1, that is file object for sample.txt, that contents are returned into target.txt using F2. Let us now run and see what we will get as output. So, as we have not displayed anything over the console, we cannot see any output over the console, but we can go to the target.txt and sample.txt to check whether contents from sample.txt have been copied onto the target.txt, as you are seeing now. Apart from the methods provided by file object, Python OS module also provides a few methods that help us perform file processing operations such as renaming or deleting files. You need to import the OS module first, then you can use the related functions. Watch the syntax for renaming and deleting the files in Python. So, here you can see how to rename and remove files. To rename, import OS module, then use the method rename. The first argument is the original name of the file and the second argument is the new name to be given. Similarly, for removing, as usual, download OS module, then invoke remove method and pass the file name which is to be removed as argument. Well, you know that when you call the Python open function, it returns a file handle. The file object has many methods and we have discussed these methods so far. Apart from these methods, file objects have attributes too. These attributes include closed, mode, name, etc. Closed attribute is used to check whether the file is closed or not. It returns true when the file is in closed state or otherwise it returns false. Mode attributes return the mode in which the file has been opened. Name returns the name of the file. We will see an example for this attributes. So, here you can see a sample script which will let us to understand the mode in which the file has been opened, what is the name we have given the file, and to check whether the file is in closed mode or open mode. So, when you run the script, you can see the output based on the mode in which the file is opened, the name you have given and the mode in which you have opened the file. Well, we have come to the end of this module. To sum up, in this module we saw how to perform create, open, read, write and append functions using the file objects. We have also explored how to use file attributes. Then we discussed how to handle text file in Python. Now, you would be able to manipulate the files on a rudimentary level. Go ahead and practice by yourself. Thank you very much for your patient listening. See you all again in another module.